I believe that if we are honest with ourselves, that the most fascinating problem in the world is, who am I? What do you mean? What do you feel when you say the word I myself?
I want to fly the train! I don't give a fuck! Oh, jeez. Hey, what's going on, bud?
¿Qué te piensas en for? It doesn't think of me as what you think it is.
Oh, jeez. Hey, what's going on? I don't give a fuck! Oh, jeez. Hey, what's going on, bud? Yeah, you can't get out of it! Oh, yeah! Oh, jeez. Stop joining your friends, you weirdo!
I think that I am familiar with the fact that you are going to ignore this particular problem until it swings up and bites you on the ass.
Psych, just kidding. My new catchphrase is, I don't give a fuck!
It's asking a lot to believe that the problem is going to fix itself.
Guess what, bitch?
Our technology and our numbers have both reached a state where inadvertently we can pose a danger to the global environment, especially through the atmosphere.
The whales have a 15-foot penis. Are you a pervert or something? Okay.
Now, nobody pretends we understand everything about the global climate.
I didn't cut out. You heard me. Google it yourself.
There are feedbacks, some of which you warm the Earth a little bit, and the tendency will be to further increase the temperature, so-called positive feedback.
What I'm saying is the planet's on fucking fire.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. I don't give a
What's up, heathens? Making sure you guys can hear it. Yeah. Okay. What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? So tonight we have a Catholic friar who's going to be defending biblical slavery, because apparently all of the slaves that we know about in the Bible and the slavery of the Israelite people were completely voluntary, according to this guy. So we're going to be learning about that tonight. I do want to give a special thanks to Digital Hammurabi for having such great information on slavery in the Old Testament, because that's primarily what we're going to be concerned with tonight. In the description, I believe if I did not save the video. In the description, you can go down there and you can find 3 of Digital Hammurabi's videos about this particular topic if you want to learn a lot more about the subject. I've also got Dr. Josh Bowen's book down there where he demonstrates how the Old Testament definitely does condone slavery. So, yep, we're going to be going through that tonight. I hope you guys will enjoy it, and I guess we'll see you here in a minute. Maybe. All right, but of course, before we begin tonight, we've got I forgot to get the shit together. I forgot to get everything together. Daniel M. David says hi from the chat there. I appreciate that. Hi there, David. I hope you're doing good. I hope you have a good night there, bud. Yeah, so I don't have any Today I Learns or good comments or anything like that. I'm really sorry about that. I did actually screen cap a bunch and perhaps wanted to talk about them, but I sadly did not get a chance to actually get them, which I don't know if I'd be able to pull them off of. Microsoft has this great okay. All right, so let's get on into the video. Teresa says, I think we have enough bullshit in this video that will be good. What's up to everybody in the chat? Yeah, so this right here is Friar Casey, and he comes from the Breaking in the Habit channel. They've got like 154,000 subscribers, and he's going to be defending biblical slavery here, or rather twisting what we know about Old Testament slavery to make it seem like it wasn't all that bad. Okay, so we're going to be listening to him tonight. There we go. Okay. You know, I was so concerned with my sound earlier, I forgot to friggin' change this sound. Okay. There we go. Okay. Let's try this again.
For many people, the Bible is nothing more than a collection of outdated laws, and its persistent use in our world does more harm than good. A book that supports slavery is not a book with any usefulness for us today.
Okay, so I would say that any book that purports to have the ultimate truth of reality, to be the moral foundation of all humanity, I would think that if it condones slavery, that would definitely mean it does not have those particular uses, like having ultimate truth or having this moral foundation that everybody has. I think that if your holy book has very outdated moral ideas and it condones them, I think that it's practically useless at that point for those particular things. So I really don't think that you can use the Bible in order to establish a good moral foundation that has existed all throughout time and that will always be a good moral foundation. I also don't think that you can claim that the Bible is inerrant, because it obviously is errant. So yeah.
And that might be a reasonable claim to make if the Bible actually promoted slavery.
Okay, so I have a very special thing that I want to do tonight, and I want to use this guy's own book against him, but I'm going to do it in a special way. All right, if you will all please take out your Bibles and... Oh, shit. Well, that's supposed to work. Anyways, let's all take your Bibles out and let's go to Leviticus 25, 44 through 46. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property and can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelite ruthlessly. So, taking this particular Bible verse into consideration, it definitely seems like the Old Testament and the Bible in general promotes slavery, condones it, and doesn't really have a problem with it. In fact, as we'll see as we go throughout this video, God is very much a pro-slavery kind of bigot. Okay?
A look to what the Bible actually says, however, reveals a different story. What does the Bible teach about slavery, and how do we make sense of God's actions with this institution today? This is Catholicism in Focus.
Drew's book reviews. Did a super chat. Drew says, "Preach it, GE! Hallelujah! Amen! Here's my offering." $2. That's a pretty good offering. Just put it in the donation plate, everybody. Just chip it in. Collection plate, whatever. I haven't been in church forever. But yeah, so the Bible tells us a different story, or it tells us a different story. It reveals a different story. What the fuck are you talking about? No, it doesn't. At every turn in the Bible, you have God either commanding the Israelites to go and kidnap people, or steal people, or murder an entire community, and then take their virgin daughters for not sex reasons, obviously. It just all around in the Bible, you have places where you could definitely point and be like, yeah, that shit's slavery. You can't hide behind anything but bullshit if you want to try to say that it's not pro-slavery. Teresa, Minnesota, who says, "Are friar robes like a kilt that you don't wear anything under them?" Yeah, I don't know. I want to look that up real quick, though. Are friars naked under their robes? I'm going to hell. I do not. It does not automatically come up in Google, so they probably do wear underwear.
On the surface, yes, the Bible appears to support the institution of slavery. There are laws to how to acquire and govern slaves, Jesus does not condemn it, and St. Paul, given the opportunity to speak against it, tells a runaway slave to return to his master. If all we did was read a summary of the Bible, we might be led to believe that God supported slavery.
Well, holy fuck there, Friar. Kinda seems like, to me at least, the Bible condemns itself when it comes to slavery. It's not that if we just read a summary of the Bible, as we'll see, if you literally read the Bible, it condones slavery. So I don't know what you're talking about with this sort of glossing over it kind of thing. I don't know what that means. So we got super chat from Jesse Shodel, who says, "From them you may buy slaves." Enough said. I know, right? And then Uhan Roderick says, "Takes collection plate from Drew." Praise Jeebus!
That's a Josephus to you.
Oh, is it? Praise Jesus! Everybody, pass the collection plate around. Come on, Daddy's got to pay bills. All right. Let's see. We've got another one from Jeff Soul, who says, "Did you see the modern day debate Dillahunty where his opponent rage quit?" Yeah, I did. I've also already debated that particular guy. I can't remember his name right now. It's on the tip of my tongue. Fuck, I can't remember his name. He's got kind of a weird name. Last name, that is. But anyways, I've debated him too. He didn't walk out on my debate, but I mean, I like that he did end up coming back around to it. So, all right, let's continue.
Luckily for us, we are much smarter than that and need not stop with surface-level analyses. We can find the texts themselves, we can read them within their context, and we can come to the very obvious conclusion that what the Bible allowed 2,500 years ago is very different from what we've seen in the modern era. When most people talk about slavery, they're thinking about chattel slavery, the forced servitude of human beings through kidnapping.
All right. Wanted to stop here because he's made a few equivocations. Everything okay? Yeah, okay. Annoying interrupting super chat. Thank you, Uhan.
It is really annoying. Oh, people want to know what you're drinking.
Oh, what am I drinking? So this is a new concoction, kind of. So we were informed by Neil 604 Atheist, right?
Yeah.
Neil 604 Atheist informed us about Kraken Black Roast coffee rum, right? And so we got that, and then we're like, well, White Russians are Kahlua and vodka mixed with half and half. So we're like, well, shit, we can just use this Black Roast rum in substitution for both the vodka and the Kahlua. And so we're calling this a jittery Putin. It's a jittery Putin. Is this one extra jittery, honey?
It is extra jittery.
This one's extra jittery tonight. It's an extra jittery Putin.
Oh, and it has a little bit of caramel macchiato creamer.
Oh, yes, it's a caramel extra jittery Putin. Hashtag jittery Putin. All right. So, like I said, I wanted to stop right here because he's equivocating a lot of different things here. For one thing, he's trying to compare ancient Near East slavery with antebellum slavery. Right, that would be the slavery that occurred in the slave trade that brought the Africans to America and everything like that. And those were due to kidnapping and well, not necessarily kidnapping, because sometimes the African tribe leaders would sell their own people into slavery because of how poor they were. But regardless of that, in any case, he's trying to compare those two things, and you can't really compare those two things exactly. I mean, they're both slavery, but they were very different with very specific nuances to them. For one thing, the ancient Near East slavery that like the Israelites practiced, but also all of the other nations and all of the other people groups of the ancient Near East also practiced this kind of slavery, right? So this was normalized back then. But to compare antebellum slavery with ancient Near East slavery is a thing that you should not do, because they are very different. Then the other equivocation that he makes is the definition of chattel slavery. The definition of chattel slavery is not forced servitude of humans through kidnapping, right? Chattel slavery is where you literally own another human, and they're not always kidnapped or stolen. Sometimes they're conquered. Sometimes even the dead slaves could be considered chattel on specific situations. Like they're not free to leave. They're not freed at all. So the two things here to take away from this particular section: you cannot compare ancient Near East slavery with the antebellum slavery, and then you also have to define chattel slavery appropriately, because the Israelites definitely practiced chattel slavery.
In the African slave trade of the 17th and 18th centuries, human beings were treated as worthless property, subject to anything and everything the owner wanted of them. This is nothing like the slavery mentioned.
Okay, so the actual closed captions for this are vastly different than what he said. The closed captions that I have that I'm using to sort of guide and structure the video response tonight, it actually says that in the African slave trade in the 17th and 18th centuries, the ongoing enslavement of women for sex trafficking workers, today human beings are treated as worthless property, subject to anything and everything the owner wants of them. And to say that there's no sex trafficking in the Old Testament, is just being willfully stupid about what's in the Old Testament. And we're going to find that out here in a minute.
In the Bible. For one thing, the book of Exodus expressly forbids kidnapping for any reason. A kidnapper, whether he sells the person or the person is found in his possession, shall be put to death. Yeah, that sort of thing was not tolerated.
Aha! I have problems with this, but we do have another super chat. We all non-believers need to unite against the Abrahamic faiths. I agree there, Rod. Thank you for your super chat. So I do have some problems here. Let me get back to my pulpit. Here we go. Now, as far as what this particular passage means, being that a kidnapper, if he sells a person or keeps a person that he's kidnapped, he's going to be killed, has a very specific context to it, which normally apologists love to put the Bible in context. I think you're going to find out why this guy does not want it to be put in context. So, if you go to Deuteronomy 24:7, what we get is a clearer picture of what is being talked about in this particular passage. It says, if a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die, and thou shalt put evil away from among you. So this particular portion right here that he's talking about is not talking about just all slaves in general, like just, whether this is a foreign people group that you've stolen or kidnapped from, or if it's from within Israel itself. That's not what it's talking about. It's specifically talking about their fellow Israelite, the ones that are considered Israel. Right? But even then, we're going to find out here in a little bit that doesn't even stop God. There are special exceptions for God.
Buying.
Wait. Hold on. In my notes, I have one more thing that I want to tell you guys. Just fucking Judges 21. All right? That's really all you got to know. You just got to go there, read that. It's fucking horrible the entire way down. All right, let me lay this out for you so you don't have to go and look it up and read it while I'm doing the rest of the review here. So basically what happened was that God appointed Gideon a judge, right? And, well, some Israelite tribes are really fucking up pretty bad. So Gideon and his massive army went and fucking destroyed this one tribe called the Benjamites. And now the Benjamites are utterly destroyed with only a few of the men. I think it was like, 600, I think, or so, men there. And after they got done slaughtering them and destroying them, they felt really bad because they didn't have any women left for all of the men that were there. And so they were like, now we don't want to see this particular tribe really go out of existence. They have to survive. What are we going to do? What is there to do? And then another fuck's like, hey, did anybody not show up for the last clan meeting? And, they were like, well, you know what? Jabesh Gilead, they didn't fucking show up. They didn't pay homage and shit. And they're like, well, fuck, let's go and take their women. So what did they? They got on their horses. They stampeded off like 12,000 of them fucks. And they went and they killed everybody at Jabesh Gilead except for all the virgins. And all the virgin men still got killed. All the virgin women, they were kept. Everybody else was killed. So just keep that in mind there. That includes children, like children, boys, innocent, I guess older children, teenagers, men, of course. They were all wiped out. And so they stole the women to give to the Benjamites. Well, guess what? There was not enough women in Jabesh Gilead to satisfy the Benjamites. So they had to think, well, shit, we're at a deficit here. We can't just tell them that Mexico's going to pay for it. What are we going to do? Oh, I know what. How about this? Benjamites, come here. Yo, he called them up on their flip phones or whatever. Yo, yeah, so we got a really good bead on this one place called Shiloh. They got a lot of cute girls out there. Yeah. Why don't you guys go and hide in the vineyard? Or vineyard, however you fucking say it. And then when all the girls come out and they're like playing in the yard and shit, why don't y'all just snatch them up, take them? No, we don't want to give you our wives. We can't get with this guy. We can't give you our wives. What are you talking about? Just go and steal Shiloh's wives. Or girls, not wives, girls. Fuck. Anyways, bye. So you get what I'm saying. God put Gideon as the judge of this time, right? In place of a king. He was the judge. He was controlling shit. These guys were doing things and it was not condemned by God. That's the point here. They stole 2 different groups of women and sexually enslaved them to other tribes in Israel. So, yeah. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about there, Friar.
And selling slaves was permitted once someone was already a slave, but you couldn't just take a human being and sell them to another person as property. Rather,
that's bullshit. You could definitely sell them as property. You were in the Old Testament, you were literally called the person's money. Like, that's why laws were made to protect them as far as like beatings and having an eye ripped out or some kind of shit like that. Like, they were considered property. They were money to their owner. You could definitely buy and sell them. It was chattel slavery.
the vast majority of slaves in that time ended up that way not by force, but by choice. Owing a debt that could not be paid, people would sell themselves, particularly their labor, in placement of what was owed.
Now, this is very important here because this is a type of slavery that was in existence, debt slavery. And you see this pretty common, like in the Old Testament, you have, what was his name? Jacob, that was in debt slavery to what would become his father-in-law. It's kind of a funny story. He sold himself into debt slavery, right, so that he could buy a woman, which, I mean, that right there is kind of bad in and of itself. It's definitely bad in and of itself. Anyways, he was trying to buy one of the dude's daughters, right? And so what he did was he worked for 7 years, and then it's like the dad pulled a fast one and like slipped in the other daughter first. And I don't know why he didn't notice until after he had like consummated the marriage and everything like that. Like, I don't know how you can go through a marriage and also fuck them and not realize who they are. You know, it seems kind of weird. Anyways, so he wakes up the next morning, you know, getting all of the drunk haze out of his head, and he realizes that he's got the wrong woman that he wanted. So he's like, "Hey, you gotta give me the right woman, okay? You didn't give me a right woman." And he's like, "Well, you gotta work for 7 more years in order to get my other daughter." And he's like, "Well, fuck. Okay, I'll do that." And he worked for another 7 years, and he got Rachel, who is the one that he wanted. So now he's got 2 wives, and then they each have slave girls who are also concubines, and who Jacob also, huh? It's one big happy fucked up trailer park family. So yeah, it was kind of weird. I forgot where I was even going with that, why that got brought up. Anyways, debt slavery. That's right. That's why debt slavery. We got Jesse Shodel, who says, "And here I thought we were the ones who were supposed to take the Bible out of context." I know, right there, Jesse? It's kind of fucking weird, isn't it? Then we got the Random Explorer, who says, "Oh, hail the blue whale dongs." With that said, if God is great, why must they always make excuses for his BS? Daniel M. Tell David I said good night. See you later, bud. Then we got Michael Thole, just did a super chat, saying, "Is sisterin the female equivalent of brethren?" Anyway, why does the Bible need so much interpretation at all? It seems super black and white. You would think so, but when you're translating from different languages and from different time periods, you do have to, I guess, try to understand what was being written a little bit more, because a lot of times there's not exact translations, or people could mistranslate things and present them in different ways. That's why you have like so many different versions of these verses in, you know, different Bible translations. So yeah. But in any case, it is important to remember that debt slavery did exist, but debt slavery did not necessarily end. Like, he wants to make it out to be like this is a voluntary thing. Sometimes it was not necessarily voluntary. Like, they didn't have the money, right? What else are they going to do? They sell themselves into debt slavery, and just because you paid your debt back does not necessarily mean you're going to get released. There are certain situations where a debt slave can turn into a permanent slave. All right.
An example of this can be seen at the end of the book of Genesis when famine strikes. Hungry and unable to pay for food, the Egyptians come to Joseph with only themselves to sell. Why should we and our land perish before your very eyes? Take us and our land in exchange for food, and we will become Pharaoh's slaves and our land his property. Only give us seed that we may survive and not perish, and that our land may not turn into a waste. They weren't forced into servitude, but chose it themselves as a means of survival.
Now, he's trying to make it out to be like the slavery that's contained in the Old Testament is only debt slavery, and that people chose to be slaves. But that's not at all the case. There are definitely chattel slavery instances in the Old Testament. All of the laws that are given, there are laws that are given for debt slaves, but there are also laws given for chattel slaves. To try to get around this is really dishonest.
There were, of course, some that became slaves as a result of war, but that still is quite different from simply kidnapping the weak and forcing them into servitude. Enemy combatants are always treated differently than civilians. That being said, even if someone became a slave due to war, this did not give the owner license to treat them however he chose, as seen in modern conceptions of slavery. Rather, even in servitude, slaves retained rights and dignity.
Oh, Jane Busecker did a super chat saying, I have never done much research on the topic of Bible at time slavery. Do we know how much of this really happened historically? Well, yeah, so what the Bible describes is, and that's what I'm about to get into, so very on point super chat there, Jane Busecker. There's this concept of ancient Near East slavery. Now, all of the things that he's going to be mentioning about rights and dignity of slaves, this was common at the time. It wasn't just the Israelites that were like super special or super nice to their enslaved beings. It was common throughout Near Eastern culture to have slaves, and that those slaves retain rights. So slaves are afforded certain amount of rights and certain amount of protections, but ultimately they are slaves and they are properties of the owner. So regardless of whether or not like the Israelites, which the Israelites would have been, taking part in the slave trade at that time, that's something that would have happened because it was the norm of cultures and people groups at that time. You have various other people groups around there that also had their own laws about the rights of slaves. So you have to just keep in mind that these are not special things. This is how slavery was done at that point in time.
Exodus 21 states, When someone strikes his male or female slave in the eye and destroys the use of the eye, he shall let the slave go free in compensation for the eye. If he knocks out a tooth of his male or female slave, he shall let the slave go free in compensation for the tooth. You heard that right. If a slave is maimed or hurt, he or she was due their freedom. This is not how slaves were treated in the African slave trade. Furthermore, Both Exodus and Deuteronomy explicitly state that slaves are to have rest on the Sabbath as well, making no distinction between Hebrew slaves and foreign slaves. They deserved rest like everyone else because, believe it or not, the Israelites acknowledged, even 2,500 years ago, that slaves are still human beings.
So again, this is not unique to the Israelites. Giving them certain rights and everything like that. Now, as far as the punishments, for injuring your slave in the way of like injuring their eye or injuring a tooth, this had a lot more nuance surrounding it. The reason why that they were let go or whatever is because basically they became useless at that point. It's kind of funny for him to talk about how they weren't treated as useless in Israel, but when in fact, I guess that's true, they weren't treated as useless until you damaged an eye or something, and you made them useless because they're property of you, and the only way that you can get a lot of work out of them is if they are intact, right? So that's one thing to consider here. Another thing to consider is that he's trying to soften up the Israelite slavery when in fact it was not soft slavery whatsoever. He's trying to make the Israelites out to be these gracious owners of other people, when in fact, slavery in the ancient Near East meant that a slave's life was extremely hard, and you can be passed down from owner to owner. They are inherited property. That is the most dehumanizing thing that I can think of. I get that you, Friar Casey, want to consider them to be some kind of benevolent slave owner that acknowledges that his slaves or his property are human beings. I think that you can acknowledge their species while still treating them as if they were inhuman things, right? So I wouldn't exactly take a lot of pride in what you're talking about here because it's really distorting all of the facts that are contained within the Old Testament. Let's see. Hold on. I've got a Bible verse for that. One second. So, to prove it with the Bible that a slave's day was very hard and that beatings were definitely the method of instruction for slaves, we have Proverbs 29, 19, and 21 that says, "Servants cannot be corrected by mere words, though they understand they will not respond. A servant pampered from youth will turn out to be insolent." Now, slaves were most notably handled with rods, the whole spare the rod, spoil the child kind of deal. They literally use rods like Michael Pearl from his book To Raise Up a Child, which is really shitty, by the way. Don't go and try to look it up, because he teaches you how to beat your child into submission, and that's exactly what the Israelites would do with their slaves. Now, he talks about how the Israelites did not treat their slaves as if they were useless things, which I've already said is true, but that does not prevent them from beating the living shit out of them in order to instruct them in what they were supposed to do or some shit. In fact, the Israelites thought that you had to beat slaves in order to get them to mind you and beat them into submission. So, still, it's horrible. Ancient Near East slavery is definitely immoral by our standards. We do not have to compare it to antebellum slavery or the slavery that we most commonly think of in order to condemn the slavery practiced by the Israelites.
Significant even than that, however, is the fact that slavery was not necessarily a lifetime sentence in biblical law. Not only were there ways to gain one's freedom, upon doing so, the owner had a responsibility to help them. If your kin, a Hebrew man or woman, sells himself or herself to you, he or she is to serve you for 6 years, but in the 7th year you shall release him or her as a free person. When you release a male from your service as a free person, you shall not send him away empty-handed, but shall weigh him down with gifts from your flock and threshing floor and winepress. As the Lord your God has blessed you, so you shall give to him. The case of foreign slaves was a bit different, as this option was not available to them, but that did not stop them from simply running away without fear of being tracked down. In the event that they found shelter in another's home, Deuteronomy states, "You shall not hand over to their master any slaves who have taken refuge with you from their master."
So he's talking about this as if it's indicative of all slaves and all of slavery that is contained within the Old Testament. Now, as far as debt slavery goes, they did have that rule, but like I said, there are specific circumstances that can arise that would cause you to be permanently indebted to somebody and not get released after 6 years. So anybody that tells you that debt slaves were definitely freed after 6 years is not really taking debt slavery into consideration. More or less, they've either been taught or they are twisting the actual message that's being sent in the Old Testament. Now, with the case of the foreign slaves, as far as them running away and being found and given shelter, that's really more about extradition rights, right? So basically, if a slave flees from another country or another people group and takes shelter in the land of Israel, then this is kind of a way to prevent extradition of that slave, right? This is definitely not talking about the slaves that are owned by Israelites, right? These foreign slaves, the chattel slaves. This particular verse, the context of it is not all slaves. It is specifically slaves from outside of Israel, and then also probably the debt slaves. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I would think that the debt slaves are afforded way more leniency than the foreign slaves, because the foreign slaves were the actual chattel slavery.
Again, this is nothing like modern slavery. African slaves were not released after 6 years, they could not run away with immunity, and they most certainly weren't given a parting gift. Modern slavery and biblical slavery are two very, very different institutions. And yet, that is not to say that this form of slavery is necessarily a good thing either. Claiming to be better than the African slave trade is a pretty low bar. Supporting even this institution is problematic. That is, if the Bible actually supported it.
What? What are you talking about? If the Bible actually supported it? It definitely supported it. God commands it. Hold on. Let me get back on my fucking pedestal. All right. I give you Numbers 31, 17 to 18. Now therefore, kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known a man by lying with him, aka touched his dick. But all the women, children, that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. And they did it as plunder. Plunder was property. They went in and they took young girls who have either not gone through puberty or were just starting to, or just haven't had their virginity taken, right? They were taken against their will, stolen, kidnapped from the Midianites, and integrated into Israelite society by becoming sex slaves. And that's what's in the Bible. That's what these two verses mean. And you'll get apologists that are going to tell you that no, that's not what that means. It's not it at all. And that's horseshit. Okay? Because that's exactly what this is talking about. This is chattel slavery. Well, sexual slavery. I won't say chattel slavery. That was a little far-reaching. Because once the Israelites did marry them, whether it was against their will or not, they became part of, they got all of the rights afforded to a wife. They were still considered, the fact is that they didn't exactly walk out of the town with all of the men still alive in town, and they willfully came to the Israelites and married an Israelite. They were forced to. That is the big thing here. This is sexual slavery, however you want to slice it. So you can't sit there on your high horse there, Friar, with your little brown friar coat on, and act like, that the African slave trade was just horrible, and this was just not as bad as that. And that the Israelites never went and stole people from other lands or anything like that. They definitely did that, and they did that under the direct guidance of God in the Bible. But him saying that that supporting this institution is problematic, and I would say so. I would also agree with the fact that you can't compare ancient Near Eastern slavery with antebellum slavery, but you don't have to do that in order to condemn it. I would like to hear what his arguments are for saying that the Bible does not support this kind of slavery.
What's often overlooked in discussions like these is that there is a big difference between supporting something and merely tolerating it. While there are laws in the Old Testament stating how the practice is to be governed, this is a far cry from open support. Rather, like Moses' allowance of divorce or the law stipulating an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, what we see here is an example of moral pragmatism. It's not the will of God, not something that humanity should seek, but also not something our frail humanity was able to avoid at the time. Rather than futilely attempting to ban it, it was far more practical to focus attention on regulating it.
I'm sorry, but when you have, like, Leviticus and Deuteronomy both lay out laws for the Israelites, and you're going to sit there and tell me that God can specify what kind of incense, or no, not what kind of incense, what kind of fire is used to light his incense, but he can't say don't own other people? Like, seriously? God can't just say, he can't just make a declaration? Like, how is this effectively, how is this different than requesting that you use a specific instance, which did happen, by the way. I don't know if you know this, but I believe it was in Exodus somewhere. Aaron had 2 sons who were priests. They used the wrong fire to light incense. And so God shoved a couple of fireballs up their asses and caused them to just spontaneously burst into flames. Okay? So he Hadoukened the shit out of them, all because they used the wrong fire. Now, if God is going to get pissy about that, as well as lay out very specifically how he wants his gold-encrusted dildos to be shaped, I think that he can say don't own other people. What? Well, there's different shapes to dong dildos. Why would they have so many different models out there, right? I've seen some that are just huge. How big would the dildo have to be to fuck God? It's kind of one of those. It's kind of one of those. Can God create a rock so big he can't lift it? We got Fran Wilson who sent a super chat saying there were also slave rebellions. Think Spartacus. Slavery, no matter the apologetics, is abhorrent. We got Drew's book reviews who says wouldn't an all-powerful God be able to change the hearts of people and influence slavery? Like he hardened Pharaoh's heart. Yeah, you would think so. You would think that he'd be able to do that, but apparently he can't. If you ever get a chance to read all of the laws that are contained within Leviticus and Deuteronomy, you'll want to not touch the Bible for a while, but you'll see how pedantic God gets in it. He lays out laws for every fucking thing. And you're trying to tell me that God is all-powerful, but also not powerful enough to stop slavery from happening? You understand how illogical as shit this is, right? This is some dumb fucking logic. And yes, you can. Thank you, honey. You can watch all of this great information about how pedantic God is, exactly how God loves his dildos to be like shaped, curved, encrusted with jewels for some odd reason. I don't know why. This one time God even encrusted and enjeweled an entire fucking city. So if you want to learn about that, definitely watch the Daily Bible Podcast. Every Tuesday at about, I don't know, it's been going at about 11:15 lately because I'm lazy in the mornings.
You shouldn't get divorced, for marriage is a covenant, but if you must, do it in this humane way. You should not use violence to solve your problems, but since you're going to seek justice in that way, just don't go overboard. Let your retaliation be equal to the damage incurred, no more. And you shouldn't own another human being, but if they owe you a debt and wish to pay it off through servitude, be sure to treat them with respect and care.
I'm so sorry. There are so many fucking hilarious things in this particular portion. So, first off, I can agree you bending what the Bible says to them saying don't get divorced, right? I can accept that and even do it in this specific kind of way. But the whole you shouldn't use violence thing. Honey, what is the Bible best known for? Violence. That's right, babe. The Bible is known for violence. God specifically calls for violence almost every chapter, right? I mean, there's specifically violent, like he even has his prophets committing violence on other people. Like when let's see, we had gotten done with Elijah, and we were talking about Elisha, right? Elisha is the fuck that stood on the mountain, and these I forget the king's name, but this king of I believe it was Israel sent his men to escort Elisha off the mountain to come and see him. But for some reason Elisha was like, nope, fuck this, and he calls down God's holy fire and just kills them. Right? He does this 2 times, and then on the 3rd time, he finally goes with them. Not only that, but there was another time when God's prophet, I believe this was Elijah, he got the king to have a competition between Baal and Yahweh. And of course, Baal didn't do shit because this is God's Bible. This is Yahweh's Bible, right? This is Yahweh's story. And so basically, the prophet of God, on God's word, told the king to kill all of the priests of Baal, just slaughter them, not let them go or anything like that. This friar is really trying to puff up the violence of the Bible to be not violence, but it is violence. To say that it says you shouldn't use violence is in direct conflict with the fucking words that God speaks in the Bible. Should I be in the pulpit for this? So we've had a few super chats here, and I appreciate everybody's super chats tonight. I think y'all like interrupting the stream with the little flashy thing. Fran said, oh, we read that one. Oh yeah, I read that one. Andrews. We got Teresa who says, God's vibrator's modeled after a whale peen. Maybe. I mean, I think that it would need to be at least that big in order to tickle him. Okay, so next on the list is you shouldn't own another human being. I wish I had my shirt already. I've already got it in my Teespring store, but it says citation fucking needed. And that's exactly what we need here. Give me the citation for where God says, do not own another human being. I would love to see where it says that in the Bible. I'm guessing that you can't actually show me that verse because it doesn't fucking exist. All right? Not once does God say don't own another person. Okay? He specifically calls for the Israelites to go in and steal people, like as in Numbers 31, 17, and 18. There are... What?
Sorry, Truth Minnesota said in Super Chat you're not allowed to say dog or dildo, but you can say vibrator.
That's interesting. So, I mean, you just simply can't say that the Bible doesn't say don't commit violence and also don't own other people. Because it definitely says that you can own other people.
At no point in the Bible, in either testament, do we find evidence of God giving an endorsement of this behavior.
All right, let's head over to the pulpit here. clear that out. Boom! Numbers 31, 17 to 18. This, what we had went over previously when we were in this little pulpit area. This is exactly declared by God to be something that the Israelites should do. To go in, kill everything there except for the virgin girls, and take them as plunder. This is a direct call from God to do this. And not just this verse either. There are plenty of other verses that you can go to in the Old Testament where God directly commands going in and killing everything in the town and taking women as plunder. Okay? This one right here, though, is one that I would suggest pulling out. Pulling out if somebody says that God has never endorsed slavery, or that God has never endorsed the kidnapping of somebody, or that God has never endorsed sexual slavery. So definitely pull this out at your next Bible study meeting. Or put this as your graduation quote, just Numbers 31, 17 to 18. That would be hilarious to see. Don't really do that though.
The closest we might point to is St. Paul, an apostle, insisting that a runaway slave return to his master, but even in that situation, it's clear that he hopes for change. In his letter to the slave owner, he writes, "Perhaps this is why he was away from you for a while, that you might have him back forever, no longer as a slave, but more than a slave, a brother, beloved especially to me, but even more so to you, as a man and in the Lord." St. Paul didn't denounce the institution as a whole, but clearly wanted to reform it from within.
Which is not exactly something that he said there. I mean, it's not exactly clear what Paul might have wanted on the whole. I mean, did he want to want them to want the kid or whoever ran away to be considered a son to them or some kind of family member? I mean, maybe. But also, this is not indicative of all slavery. I mean, Jesus himself said that slaves need to obey their masters. So, not only that, but the entire Bible has a slave mindset. You're supposed to be enslaved to this God figure. You're supposed to do exactly what he wants, when he wants it. And if you get out of line, he'll definitely punish you for it. And he'll be savage about it. I mean, that's all in the Old Testament. The Israelites fuck up all the time in the Old Testament, and God loves to take out his wife beater and go through the town and fuck them up. Okay? So you can't sit there and tell me that that Christians wanted to do away with slavery. Like, especially St. Paul. I really don't think that there's anything that you could pull out as far as Bible quotes go and say that this is a direct condemnation of slavery or an attempt to reform it from within, right? That it's just it's ridiculous to even suggest that.
It's for this reason that the far more logical conclusion, when taking the Bible as a whole, is that God found the institution of slavery repugnant.
If God found the institution of slavery repugnant, he wouldn't have made laws for it. He would have undoubtedly said you shouldn't own another person. In his 10 Commandments, he definitely wouldn't have listed women as not slavery, but women as property. I mean, there are so many things that you could say here as far as like God finding slavery repugnant. Like, there's just no way that you can actually pull out scripture that suggests that God finds it repugnant. That's why he's not actually listing any Bible verses for it. I mean, he listed Bible verses in support of himself earlier in these other various instances, but he can't actually point to a Bible verse where God shows that he finds slavery repugnant, because he directly commands it in the Old Testament. He commands the taking of slaves. I wouldn't make laws for anything that I thought was immoral or repugnant. Like, there are several things that I find repugnant in this life. And I definitely wouldn't make a law in preference to it, right? Like I wouldn't make a law that would make it okay for you to do something as repugnant as slavery. So
Overwhelmingly, God hears the cries of the poor and sides with the oppressed. The prophets, speaking for God, repeatedly denounce the abuse of the poor.
wait a second. If that's the situation, then why do mega pastors exist or mega preachers exist? Why does the Catholic Church exist? God favors the poor? I don't fucking think so. I mean, I really don't see how God is favoring the poor, unless you mean like once they die and they get up into heaven, and then God favors the poor, because as far as I can tell, God doesn't give a shit about poor people. He gives a shit about, like, rich fucks, especially in the Catholic Church. I mean, the Catholic Church specifically has funds set away to pay off sexual abuse victims. So don't sit there and tell me that God looks favorably on the poor when it's fairly obvious God doesn't give a shit about the poor.
I mean, really, God's greatest act of the Old Testament is the rescuing of his people from slavery to set them free.
But it was debt slavery, right? It was debt slavery, so it wasn't really all that bad, right? I mean, it's either debt slavery is either horrible and is as bad as we've been talking about, or debt slavery is just it's like a walk in the park. It's fine. It's not all that bad. There are rights. You have rights, right? So why do you use debt slavery that the Egyptians were, legally allowed to impose on the Israelite people? How is that different from the Israelites' debt slavery? I would say that it's not. But also, I love how these people voluntarily sold themselves into slavery. And then you're going to use the fact that God took what was it, honey? Like 400 years? For God to get them out of slavery? It was like, it was like 400 years for God to get them out of slavery. That's some all-powerful God right there. If I took 400 years to save anybody that was falling off of a cliff, I really don't think that that's, like, magnificent on my part. But in any case, God regularly uses the fact that he freed them from slavery as a way to guilt the Israelites into worshiping him and all this other stuff. But to say that God rescuing his own people from the slavery that they themselves put themselves in, as some kind of statement against slavery in general, I think is very disingenuous. I think that means that Yahweh didn't want his particular people to be enslaved, but I really don't think that means slavery in general was repugnant to him.
Even without an outright repudiation, despite the laws regulating it, when we look at the institution in practice, understanding how God acts in other situations, I think it's clear what to think. God would never support such an awful institution.
I disagree, because God obviously supported the institution, especially when he commanded the Israelites to go and take slaves. Well, in that particular instance, it'd be sexual slaves. In Numbers 31, 17, 18, sexual slavery. But, I mean, he talks about taking slaves. I mean, he commands them to take slaves, to take plunder, to enslave people, to buy people from other lands. Now, you couldn't buy your fellow Israelite unless they sold themselves into your debt. But even then, that doesn't mean that they get released after 6 years. So, in any case, I do believe. Let me actually get back to the main camera here. All right, heathens. Well, I hope that you enjoyed tonight. I think that this guy is woefully wrong about what he's reading out of the Bible. I think that he's completely, twisting what information is there. God definitely loved slavery. He's very pro-slavery. He wants the Israelites to remain in slavery to him, for one, but also in him making the laws and actually commanding them to go and buy slaves from another area. That shows that he was in support of it, but also the fact that he doesn't specifically say, do not own another human being, is kind of condemning as well. It's kind of like one of those things where somebody doesn't want to say that they're a racist, but they don't want Section 8 housing close to them because they're just a different class of people. That still means that you're racist. And more so classist, I guess, than racist. But the insinuation being made in that particular interview that I saw, it was definitely clear that she was fucking bigoted. Even though she was saying that she wasn't. But in any case, like I said, I hope that you guys enjoyed it tonight. If you will, please leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought about Friar Casey's video here. Do you think he successfully defended the Bible against slavery? More specifically, defended God against the idea that he condones slavery? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Really love to hear it. Hey, while you're down there, make sure you smash that like button. Subscribe if you're not already. And if you want to see more live streams like this in your feed. Now, don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens. But don't go, because we are going to be doing the Skeptic Mafia comments. If you guys don't know, there's a little join button right below the video right now that you can smash, and you can join the Skeptic Mafia. And with your with joining the Skeptic Mafia, you have different levels that you can join at. One of those levels is Mafioso, and you get to leave a comment on tonight's video. And I do have to get this brought up real quick. I don't actually have the window up, so you'll have to hold on 1 second. I don't have music. It's not queued up right now. Oh, hey, hun. Could you go in and into the held for review and everything and see if there's any that got held back? Yeah. Okay, thank you. I know. Okay, hold on. Almost got it pulled up. All right, here we go. All right, so first up, we've got Cadence. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right, here we go. So first up is Cadence tonight. Thank you, Cadence. She says, but the Bible wasn't written by God. It was written and edited by humans. Should pull this up over here. Okay, here we go. Quentin says, just giving my weekly offering. Thank you so much, Quentin. Cadence says, but the Bible wasn't written by God. It was written by and edited by humans. And in this book, there are rules governing slavery. No forbidding it, governing it. That's a very astute observation there, Cadence. Thank you. Oh, we got the shit. Technical issues with G. For some reason, it fucked up on the window that it was having. All right. Next up is Michael W. Roble. Jim the Tanker said, "Damn, I'm 3 doubles in and missed the whole show. Rum and Coke Zero night." Well, I've got a caramel jittery Putin. I'm still working on it. All right, Michael W. Roble. Did you know that Georgetown University, a Catholic institution outside Washington, D.C., wouldn't exist today if it weren't for the good old chattel slavery? Shortly before the Civil War, Georgetown was facing bankruptcy, so the Jesuit priests, who still run the school, sold all their slaves to a plantation in Louisiana, thus avoiding financial ruin. Oh, one of the slaves they sold was actually an African indentured servant working off as debt and not their property. To make things all better, if you can prove that you are related to one of these slaves, you can get automatic admission to the university today. Of course, you still have to pay the full price of tuition, room, and board. They just won't judge the fuck out of you. So, Friar Fuck, why did the Catholic Church own slaves? And why couldn't Jesus/God just say don't own slaves? Is he a wussy? Or is this whole God thing bullshit, pure and simple? Huh? Thought so. Catechism got your tongue. Damn, Michael, you went hard, didn't you, bud? Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is that, like, you can try to twist the scripture all you want to, but the pure simple fact is that that God never directly condemns slavery. You actually have to twist it around in different ways in order to make it say no slaves when it doesn't actually say that. Alex Baranowski! The Bible doesn't promote slavery. It just teaches people how to practice it. Does he realize that promoting something isn't just saying, I encourage you to do this? It's also, here's how you can do this should you want to. That's a good point there, Alex. Slavery is simply owning the owning of of a person as property. There's no way to do it humanely. If slavery isn't God's will, why can't he stop it? This creep makes no sense. What makes sense is joining the Skeptic Mafia for $5 a month. You can get exclusive content and have GE read whatever you want on air. Like, Donald Trump has gotten closer to making America great again today than he has during the past 3 years. God. Wash your damn hands and wear a mask. I think that was in reference to him getting COVID. Thank you, Alex, for your quote, or for your comment. Teresa, Minnesota says, is it just me, but are younger clergy more annoying in their religious superiority than older ones? This friar reminds me of this former student of my husband. The family was originally Catholic, but then they joined our local uber fundy church, so fundy that they have their own prophet, more likely profit. Anyway, this guy went to some fundy college that isn't even accredited and then went to an even more spurious seminary. This guy is now a minister. Back when marriage equality was in the news, he would debate me and wouldn't admit his own hypocrisy. He's white. His wife is black. Yeah, religious people talking about slavery is always good for a laugh. So what are you waiting for? Click that old join button. Then you can get these videos early and post silly comments like this. Even better is the whale peen emoji. That alone is worth it. At the very least, subscribe to this channel. Shill, shill, shill! Thank you so much there, Teresa. Uhan Roderick. You shouldn't own another being. Proceeds to talk about how it was necessary to tolerate owning human beings. If God finds the act of slavery repugnant, he should have done something about it instead of teaching them how to do it. Fuck off with that shit. Sheet. Damn, Uhan, ripping him a new one. Vanta Blue says, How can one man be so wrong about one thing so much over such a short period of time? What does forced slavery mean, really? Someone taken against their will and forced into slavery, for sure. He even mentions that. But to me, it's also someone who is forced to go into slavery due to lack of other options, which he mentions but considers a choice. A choice between death by starvation and life in servitude is not really a choice, it's forced. That's a very good point. I should have brought that up in the actual video. A Hebrew slave should go free on the 7th year, but it doesn't apply to foreign slaves, huh? What about them? Why didn't he dare to talk about their chances of getting free? So you should shelter a runaway slave and not turn him back over, but it doesn't seem to say a single word about helping them get free or even stopping their master from snatching them at an unplanned visit. True, but again, that particular law was more about not allowing extradition to other countries, and not so much dealing with runaway slaves in Israel. Like Israelite runaway or foreign slaves that Israelites owned. So his holy book, by his all-powerful God, can't outright say it condemns slavery, but has to tolerate it due to it being common at the time of writing? That sounds like someone wanted to appease powerful men rather than be a moral compass. Hypocrisy! And if it was only due to how life was lived at the time of writing, why not simply remove the parts that concern slavery, now that it shouldn't be needed anymore? Because the Pope speaks for God, right? So he should be able to put forth such a message, right? Or does Catholicism still cower in fear to slave owners? That's a good question. At least he was right on one thing. It's hard to compare anything to the aberration that was the African slave trade. That's why we should condemn it. Sorry for being ranty. Oh, go, Vanta Blue. Go ahead and rant away, man. I appreciate your rant. Drew's Book Reviews wrote a book review. Drew says, he certainly presents himself and his argument as reasonable and rational, but the issues here is not how well slaves were treated, but slavery itself. In Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive, an entire race of people are enslaved. They are called parshmen. They are viewed as less intelligent and good for nothing but servitude and bondage. But in this world, it is considered normal and acceptable. There is also a class of people who can be sold into slavery to pay their slave debts and eventually earn their freedom. However, the amount they earn after living expenses, it may as well be a life sentence, often not even earning enough to pay for their own needs. They are treated only slightly better than their parshman counterparts. One of our characters, Kaladin, is one of those who was sold into slavery. During his story arc, he becomes something more, eventually earns his freedom, but fails to understand the plight of parshmen. Kaladin even finds he harbors many of the same prejudices as the rest of his culture against parshmen. It's only after he finds himself relying on a group of parshmen who have rebelled against their masters, has to earn their trust in order to survive, that this begins to change. He has to come to terms with the immorality of what his people have done to the parshmen in enslaving not just their bodies but minds as well. Kaladin comes to understand that just because his culture indoctrinated him and everyone else that slavery is acceptable because of how well the slaves are treated, that does not make it right. He must come to terms with the reality that in the Parshendi War, it is not the Parshendi that are the aggressors. They only seek to save their people from their slave masters. This Friar Tuck guy is like the ruling class in this Sanderson story, justifying slavery because the slaves are treated well. This does not make it right, and like Kaladin, we need to recognize that the going doctrine does not make the practice right, regardless of how it was practiced. Anyway, that's what I got for today. Do that like, comment, and sub to GE thing, and keep on reading. Thank you so much, Drew. That was a very informative review there. I really appreciated it, man. Will, Prince of Fetch. Correct me if I'm wrong, but either Friar Fuck is lying or ignorant of what the Bible actually says about slavery. Yes, there were the time restrictions, but didn't those pertain to fellow Hebrews? Yes, it did, Will. And not say the little girls taken as sex slaves. Nope, not them. Or am I misremembering some crucial shit? Nope, you're pretty spot on there, Will. And just claiming it's different from chattel slavery doesn't make voluntary slavery any different when there were ways to basically force someone to sign on for life, your freedom or your wife. Ring any bells? And let's not forget, you can only beat your slave to near death, and it's cool as long as he's up in about a few days. It'll only feel like death for a little while. A lot of Christians have problems with that particular thing, the idea that you can beat your slave, and as long as he gets up in a few days, you're fine. Like, a lot of them have a problem with that, saying, well, that's not exactly that. I mean, it didn't mean that they could just beat the shit out of them. But obviously, according to the Proverbs 29 verses, that is exactly how you taught slaves how to obey you, and you beat them into submission. So just keep that in mind when referencing that. Dude Bro's pathetic attempt to defend God anointed slavery is but one of the many reasons I am a recovered Catholic. Oh, I didn't know you're an ex-Catholic, man. Or recovered Catholic. That's pretty awesome. I started out as Catholic, and then I went to Protestant religions. Or not religions, but denominations. And the fact that there are still people out there trying to make the bad things seem not so bad reinforced my decision to walk away from that particular faith every time they open their flapping maws. And as far as God freeing the Israelites from slavery, that didn't ever happen. Oh, I meant to mention that. Yeah, Exodus never happened. In Egypt, doesn't he remember who put them there in the first place? Okay, do your shilling thing. Peace out. Thank you, Will. If you guys don't know, we have a Skeptic Mafia podcast, which I have one recorded that I got to get up for you guys before next week. Otherwise, it's just going to be pointless. But, yeah, I will get that up to you guys sometime this weekend, okay? Dave Lee. This is what I posted on Break the In the Habit YouTube channel. It's as if the narrator is saying, don't cherry pick the Bible your way, cherry pick the Bible my way. The Bible says you can beat your slave as long as he doesn't die in a day or two. It also says to obtain slaves from the heathens around you. The Bible does support slavery, plain and simple, at least to the non-indoctrinated. On another note, the Diocese of Rockville Center on Long Island, New York, just filed for bankruptcy. With 200 cases of child abuse, aka Catholic priests raping kids, I guess they're having trouble keeping their doors open. Tell me, what say your imaginary deity about all this kid rape that he's done absolutely nothing about? I don't know. I would say that if God really found it repugnant, abhorrent, or anything like that, he'd probably do something to stop it. I mean, I remember in my conversation with Otangelo last week, I don't see it as, like, if I jump in front of somebody that's about to rape a kid and I fucking punch them in the face and knock them the fuck out, that's not me affecting their free will, right? They still want to do that. I'm just preventing the shit from happening, right? And for some reason, God just simply doesn't do something of that nature. Would you like to answer straight up, or should I expect more cherry picking as usual? Dave Lee, do not expect them to be honest about it. Expect them definitely to try to twist it around. I would expect any apologist at least to twist it around. Christopher and Dave, 1, what's up with the Jedi robes? 2, yes, the Bible supports slavery. 3, there is nothing useful in the Bible. And 4, as always, there will be ASCII. Are you kidding me? Something tells me he isn't kidding. But you know who isn't? GE, because he's awesome like that. And if you want to show him you think he's awesome too, go ahead and give that like button a big, wet, sloppy lick. Trump did, and now look. Oh, wait. No, you do not get COVID from licking the like and the subscribe button. Don't lick things in general. I'm just saying.
You'll get other things.
He has COVID-19. Maybe I'll rethink clicking the like button instead. Stay around 2 meters away and just click on it instead, just to be safe, and wear your goddamn mask. Wash your goddamn hands. After that, come back and subscribe. And if you're feeling especially charitable, go ahead and join the Skeptic Mafia. Perks. We have perks. So many perks. I can't list them all. Perks. Don't forget to stand up. Use your voice. Thanks for attending my TED Talk. We got Fran Wilson, who did a super chat, saying, do you think that apologetics is an example of cognitive dissonance? Well, I think I think somebody's apologetic for a specific thing can be the result of cognitive dissonance. I don't think that it's an example of it. Just because, as I understand it, cognitive dissonance is the uncomfortable feeling of holding two different, two conflicting ideas at once. And you have to resolve them in some way. And there's a lot of different ways that you can resolve them. One of them being confirmation bias. One of them being sort of like cherry picking or rejecting new information in favor of the old information because you like it better. So I think that the apologetics is a result of cognitive dissonance, but I don't think that it's an example of cognitive dissonance. Jim the Tanker says, there are certain things that just need licking. Casey said, agreed. I scrolled down a little bit too much. All right, Daniel M. This is basically saying God doesn't support slavery, but he will turn a blind eye to it. That is the same way Trump handles the Johnson Amendment. In some states, if you see a crime being committed but don't report it, you can be prosecuted the same as the people committing the crime. God is guilty. Yes, the Bible supports slavery. I want to thank you all who have donated and supported us through this terrible time in our lives. You all mean more to me than you know and are considered family. It definitely helps to know that you care for and support David and me. Amy's side of the family came into some money after another loss, so that and the donations, the funeral costs have been taken care of. That's good to know. I could not have done that without you. David and I thank you so much. If you are not part of the Skeptic Mafia, absolutely do so. You will get to be part of the most depraved channel on YouTube and make Ray Comfort blow chunks, and that is totally awesome.
Also, we were told in the chat today we're nasty.
Oh, we were told in tonight's live chat?
That we're nasty.
We're nasty?
Mm-hmm.
Nasty. Check. Take a good look at John and Casey and realize that they are extraordinary people. John, you and Casey are forever part of my and David's family. If David grows up to even be half as caring and as generous as you two, I will be overfilled with joy. Although I'm already overfilled with pride for him. If your family ever find yourselves in the St. Louis area, hit me up. You will not have to pay for a place to stay, nor will you have to pay for food. Thank you both. You mean the world to me. That is so awesome to hear from you, Daniel. I'm glad that we were all able to help you out in that time. If you weren't here the past few weeks, Daniel lost his wife a few weeks ago on a Wednesday. She had a stroke the week before, and then she passed away a week later. And it's been really hard on Daniel, and we came together as a community to help him out the most that we could. So I'm so glad that we were able to help you there, Daniel, and I'm glad that we are considered part of your family, but more importantly, you're considered part of all of our family. At least I would like to think. I don't mean to speak for other people, but thanks, Daniel. I appreciate that message, man. Jim the Tanker says, who is this chunks that Ray is blowing? I don't know. Probably that really fat bunny rabbit. The really fat what's the Warner Brothers rabbit? Bugs Bunny? The really fat Bugs Bunny?
Bugs Bunny's not fat.
Just look it up, fat Bugs Bunny.
I feel like you're sending me to something gross.
Sean J. When a Christian makes the claim that slavery and the rules related to the treatment of slaves was properly in the Bible, mental gymnastics. Friar Tuck did not disappoint. I like how you guys are calling him Friar Tuck. I don't know why that's hilarious to me. Friar Tuck did not disappoint. Saying it was the style of the time, Christians admit that their God is not all-knowing and not all-powerful. Further, by taking this path, they acknowledge that there is no objective morality. To put it another way, God is not written on humans' hearts. I love the gymnastics needed to put forth that slavery was only indentured servitude, except when it wasn't, and the blatant oversimplification and disregard for morality. If this dude is okay with literal slavery, then he needs to come mow my lawn for free, and he can live off the massive dandelion plantation in my front yard. Thank you, Sean J., for your comment, man. Trickster! Friar Tuck says that the biblical slavery was different than other slaveries because kidnapping was against their God. I'm sure we all know about the parts of the Bible where it clearly states, kill everyone in that town over there, but keep the virgin girls for yourselves. Yep. Friar Tuck says that only indentured servitude is what the Bible is talking about. He seems to forget the part of how the Bible says that you can go into other countries and buy people you will own forever, even giving the slave as an inheritance. Remember not to damage your slave. Your kids don't want damaged property. Like, subscribe, and share this. If you want to be part of something special, hit that join button, become part of the Skeptic Mafia. See the video for Friday early and make almost any comment you like, and GE will read it on air. You get a podcast every Tuesday and monthly hangouts. Don't forget to stand up, use your voice, help those you can, and wash your danged hands. As always, I'm with y'all in spirit, even if I can't be with y'all in real time. Bye, fellow heathens. That's so awesome to hear there, Trickster. I'm glad that, I'm glad that you're here in spirit, if you can't be here, really. Definitely, if you guys have not shared this out yet, consider sharing it out. I think there are people that need to know about how the Bible definitely condones slavery and not condemns it. The Bible clearly supports supports and condones slavery. It even separates slavery into categories. These set rules for the slave owner and the slaves. It clearly mentions that slaves were both common in and out of their own culture and civilizations. It said and made permissible to attack and take other people as captives and slaves. Then, to end this conversation, I want to point out that anyone who reads the Bible, you're reading an edited and misinterpreted and interpolated form of what the original texts say, is played down at best. Parts do not translate well to other languages, especially modern English. So keep it in mind that what you're reading is much worse and more brutal than what is usually in the original writing of the text version. Typically, what can be said or written in just a few words in ancient Hebrew, Aramaic, and the like might take several sentences to say or properly describe in English. They cut it down and edit it, simplify and dummy it down to shorten it all. That and keeping it at a dummy level helps it fit the dummies they teach it to. Damn. Terrence Clark. Don't own slaves, but if you must. That's kind of like, I'm not a racist, but... except nowhere in the Bible does it say don't own slaves. If you have a bunch of rules about how to own and treat slaves and no order to emancipate them, then you're condoning slavery. The best he's got is a line about one slave he commands to be welcomed back as a friend instead of a slave. Not a commandment, not a Leviticus taboo, not even a mild suggestion that it applies beyond this one guy. If that's the command not to own slaves, it is watered down, easily misinterpreted one. Gesundheit. You okay? You're alive? You saw Jesus?
Yep, for a second.
Was he white?
No.
He wasn't white, guys. Jesus is not white. And what really gets me is God ordered the Israelite men to slice off a piece of their dicks, but slavery? That's another good point. I didn't think about bringing up circumcision. You mean to tell me he couldn't say don't own slaves, but yet he could convince them to slice their dicks up? Come on, man. Oh, also, I don't know if you guys remember it, but one time the Ark of the Covenant was stolen, and the people, like the entire town that it was kept in, all developed nut cancer. Look it up. That's legit as shit.
It's also in the Daily Bible Podcast.
It is in the Daily Bible Podcast. A lot of this is in the Daily Bible Podcast. Oh, well, it was a different time, and the people wouldn't accept that. Come on. You can tell people to literally slice off a piece of themselves off, and they'll go without it. Or they'll go with it. But you can't just clearly say don't own people because they won't be on board with it. Right? Jonathan Nickel. As far as I'm concerned, people who try to make excuses for biblical slavery are no better than slave owners themselves. He talks of debt slavery. That was permitted in the Bible too, but I see it as no more moral than chattel slavery. I agree with Cosmic Skeptic that the only moral treatment of a slave is to grant them their immediate emancipation. The book says you can buy your slaves from the heathen around you, the slave trade. This immediately demolishes the apologetic claim that the Bible does not endorse kidnapping, trying to explain that to slavery as a whole, trying to extend that to slavery as a whole. He admits that the rule about Hebrew slaves does not apply to foreigners, who are your slaves for life and can be passed on to your children. He also doesn't mention the clause whereby you can get your Hebrew slave wife and force him to be your slave forever, for life. I know, right? He asserted that you can harm your slave, they are to be set free. Does that apply to the slave you beat within an inch of his life, who did not die after a couple of days and is therefore not to be avenged, for he is your money? Money. He cherry picks from his own book trying to present slavery as not as bad as people say. Bollocks! It was that bad, and I personally can't stand people who try to rationalize it. I agree. I absolutely don't think so. If it does, show me the verse that says it. Or better yet, let me Google it to find out myself, because I absolutely don't think it supports slavery. I absolutely don't think it supports slavery, and if I can get done with working time, I'll be able to tune in and see if it does. The Bible does, in fact, support slavery. So, yeah, it definitely does there, Gary. There are plenty of verses where it does support slavery. So, I hope that I've shown you that here tonight, and I think that is going to be all. Let me get back to the main camera here. Hellbound Hillbilly said, oh my, want Chunk, the rather hefty kid in the Goonies? Yes, thank you to all the moderators that are in the chat tonight, helping us keep the chat all nice and clean, and better than most of the Christian channels that I've been on. It's kind of odd how the Christian channels have the shittiest people on them, but yet they have a moral foundation.
See, the difference is we talk about dicks, but they are dicks.
Yeah. We talk about dicks, and they are dicks. Gary White, yes, I did read your comment there, Gary. Right there at the end. I got it. Uhan, what did I miss? The Bible supports slavery, and so you didn't miss anything.
And dildos.
And dildos. And then Teresa, vibrators! Thank you, Jim. Jim said, great show. Now, next week, we're going to have kind of a mixed week, I think. I'm going to, Wednesday, I think I'm going to bring back an old topic that I haven't done for a while. Monday, we actually have a guest post from Gutsick Gibbon. So y'all be prepared for that. If you're not subscribed to Gutsick Gibbon, definitely go and check her out. She's got an awesome channel over there. But also, check out Digital Hammurabi. They just passed 19,000. They're about 800. They're probably less than 800 away from making 20,000. So definitely, if you see this and you like the information in it, definitely go to Digital Hammurabi. They have great content over there, especially if you want to know more information about ancient Near East slavery. So definitely go and check them out. I have their videos linked down in the description. I need something to drink.
Is that like a call to action?
Huh?
Is that a call to action?
Yeah, no. I do need to go though, because we have been going for like an hour and 40 minutes. You know, I'm really, huh?
Teresa wants to know when this month's hangout is.
Oh, when is this month's hangout? Well, let's see. Let's look at the calendar here. We could either do it the 10th or the 24th.
Oh, apparently Kellyanne Conway has COVID now too.
Oh, Kellyanne Conway has COVID.
I'm looking it up.
Okay.
Tony in the chat is, or Titan Designs in the chat is reporting.
Okay. Titan Designs or Titan Uranus?
Titan Uranus. Sorry. I mixed up names.
I'm
trying to find it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Republicans that are getting COVID.
Yeah, I know. I wonder, did anybody see that Lorena De Lorraine?
Oh, what's her name?
Lorena. Deanna Lorraine. She's like, have you guys noticed that like all these Republicans are getting COVID, but like no Democrats are? And it's like, Jesus Christ, why do you think that could be, huh? Oh, and if you guys don't know, the background tonight is for, I believe it's breast cancer awareness. I believe that's what it is. So that's what October is breast cancer awareness, at least until the 31st.
Oh, also, don't forget, trivia is this Wednesday.
Nerd Trivia is going to be this next Wednesday. That's on the XCon channel. I'll keep a lookout on the community tab because I normally post a link to the trivia on the night that it's supposed to be. So definitely check it out there. Teresa's got to get tested for COVID. Yes, Nerd Trivia.
It's so fun.
Yeah, yes, Uhan said that I cleaned house last time. I definitely did. Got some awesome stuff. I already got them in the mail. I got a signed picture from, the kid that played Boba Fett in the second of the prequels, Attack of the Clones, I believe it was. Oh no, I set it over here, huh?
Oh, it's over there.
Yeah. It's sitting on top of the seat. Yeah. Cleaned up and got this little motherfucker.
So we're gonna get it framed.
We're gonna get it framed, and it's probably gonna be part of my set once we actually get our house. Mm-hmm. So awesome. Christopher and Dave want some salty nuts.
That's not unusual.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go there, heathens. I hope that you guys had a lovely night. So I think Daniel M tagged me. Yeah, for real, if y'all want to take a trip up to St. Louis, don't hesitate, get a hold of me. I'm just about 20 minutes from there. My home is open to you all. Thank you so much, Daniel. We'll definitely keep that in mind when we're traveling. We probably won't be really traveling until maybe next year, if anything. So, but anyways, we're going to go. I will see you heathens later. Thank you so much for all of the super chats tonight. I really appreciated all of them. And I guess we'll talk to you guys on Monday, if not before then. So I'll see you guys later. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.